Coming up next is part 2 of K100's interview with NWA World Heavyweight Champion Nick Aldis. You can keep up with everything Nick is up to at Real Nick Aldis, Aldis, on Twitter.
Let me ask you a question. So, do you what do you watch these days? You keep up with you watching AEW and WWE and stuff, or do you what do you watch? Anything?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm if I'm around, I tend to DVR it so I can fast forward through stuff.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
That's the only way you can watch it.
So the NWA show, and you specifically, you've embraced the star factor. Dressed to the nines. I'm the world champion. I got a 3-piece suit on. Very well dressed.
You look the part, bro.
A lot of the guys in the NWA show embrace style when they come out there. They're on TV. We want to look like stars. Bro, what do you when you watch AEW and you see some of these guys that come out on that show with shorts and t-shirts and flip-flops on everything? What do you think about that?
I don't want to generalize everything to a particular promotion because I think you get into sort of
just in indie wrestling. Because what we do is indie wrestlers that get elevated to the top level, and they don't realize it's okay, this is different. We're on national TV. We need to embrace these things.
Let me piggyback off that real quick. So the thing is, we come from the old school, which is pageantry, and so sometimes when we see a lot of the almost there was a radical change. I don't know who started it. It looked like around the Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Ring of Honor days, where they were just coming out in basketball shorts and fucking looked like they were going to wash their car, which to them, I guess, was we're the anti, but I just think when you're on a major TV network and you're going out there, and I don't care what a promotion it is, you're out there in basketball shorts and just a t-shirt and not at least looking. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to see an NBA player dressed like that. Right. They're always going to be. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you guys can figure this out. But I obviously, have the same school of thought as you do as far as that goes. I think, for me, look like a somebody, right? You don't have not everybody has to wear a suit.
Right.
For example, I do the suit because it works for me. There's, there are guys in WWE who make way more money than I do, who probably have $5,000, $10,000 custom made suits, and the only time they wear them is at the Hall of Fame, and it's who gives a shit? But it's I've become known for having, for dressing well and blah, blah. Well, dude, I got some of my custom made suits from India and stuff. Some of them now I get them for free. Because a guy in Miami reached out to me and was like, "Hey, dude," he recognized one of the fabrics I had chosen. He was like, "Hey, that's one of mine. I want to make suits for you." And I was like, "Shit, I want to let you." You know what I mean?
Nick, suits ain't cheap. A nice suit ain't cheap.
Is Drew McIntyre your boy?
We know each other fairly well. Never super close.
Okay, so I just assume all guys from the UK know each other. My bad. So, Drew McIntyre will come out and he'll be in a sweat. He's not in a suit, but he's looking sweet.
Sure.
He's the champ.
Right.
And I like you say, not everybody should be in a suit, but at least, don't look like a bum either.
Yeah, dude. When you would come out on Nitro, when hip hop was such a big influence on pop culture, it's Kev would wear the bandana backwards, Tupac style and stuff like that. It's just doing stuff that makes you look special, important. And really more important than that, in my opinion, is it's the conviction, right? You got to own it, that. Like I said, I have this weird thing where I look forward to putting on the suit and everything because I play around with the different looks and stuff. And it's sometimes when I get it, when I know I've got a combination just right.
Yeah, nobody can tell you shit. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm fine. Right.
Yeah, man. My
gives you
my
confidence.
Goes out, my shoulders go back. I walk differently. And because I know
you look
I'm gonna
good.
walk into a room and everyone's gonna be like, who the fuck's that guy?
Right.
They don't necessarily need to be oh, that's the world champion, that's a wrestler, blah, blah, blah. Most of the time they don't. But I walk in the room and everyone goes, hey, who's this? And it's that doesn't have to be a suit. It can be whatever. You mentioned Zicky Dice. He has his own sort of thing going on. And it's there's something there. It's branding, right? I heard you guys talking about Trump on the last show. And it was you get it. He gets it. He's a brand. You don't. you like him, you don't like him, you hate his guts. Nobody's indifferent, and ultimately, he's brand. Like, and all wrestlers, dude, in the Attitude Era, it was like between what you guys were all doing and then all the guys on the WWF show, the matches didn't mean shit. It was like, you go back and watch like Raw from like '98. It's like most of the matches are literally like ding ding, kick, punch, shoot into the ropes, big move, 1, 2, kick out, shoot, reverse. Other guy does a big move, boom, kick, punch, run in, finish. Because the 6 minutes segment, 3 minutes of it was entrances. Val Venus comes out, he's got the towel, he's doing the whole gimmick, and then Road Dogg comes out, and by the time he's done his whole shtick with the audience, it's like they got 2 minutes to bish bash bosh, get in and get out, because they didn't care about that. It was a brand, get over. I don't know. I think
that's what you're right. That this is what's happened to the businesses. We've forgotten stuff, and you look back, it's like, okay, that we were drawing back then. And it's like you fast forward, and it's like a lot of these principles got taken away by, okay, how good is the work? How good is the match? How good was that match? And you don't even care about the build these days. It's like, so it's like, and I just see it's like this frustrates me to no end on these shows, is that I see a lot of these guys embracing the phoniness of professional wrestling and ignoring the professionalism of professional wrestling, and it's like when you wear a suit, you are advertising our business. It's like, so this guy looks like a star to see, and I just see these things ignored, and I see them given a pass by like the dirt sheet guys and stuff, and the critics, they don't even look at stuff like this. It's good. And the
irony of it is that, like, guys, a lot of there's so many matches that are happening now that are athletically incredible. These guys just performing and executing these fantastic moves, one after another. Cardio's great, execution's great, athleticism, but they're not memorable. Like no one remembers them the next week. And the irony is that like they're hurt. The guys are doing themselves a lot of damage as well. Like because it's like you can have a TV match and you could fill some of that time with stuff that might make people remember you, or you can dump each other on the heads a bunch of times with German suplexes and this and that, and shorten your career and also have less impact. To me, it's a disconnect.
And here's the thing, Nick, that what you're seeing is those seeds that were planted back in the 90s when Lucha first came to United States, and to the guys behind the scenes, they didn't get it, but the fans were like, what the hell is this? Every young guy wanted to fly and do cool shit instead of a rest hold or fucking the figure four.
Dude, right? I can find matches with me and like when I was like coming into the business where like I'm trying to do all that stuff, and I watch it back now and I'm cringing like, what were you doing? Like,
right. But the thing is, they've gone overboard now. Okay, it all looks choreographed, bro. I'm the one that helped usher that in, so it all looks choreographed. You see all this leg slapping and you see all these things that don't make sense, and everybody's so busy trying to fly and get people to say this is awesome, please come back, fight forever and all that bullshit, that they forget all the little other nuances that actually make you a great wrestler, from working the crowd to hitting somebody to punching. How many people know how to punch anymore? And so you have all these holes in their game because they're too busy trying to do acrobatics. And, you see it all the time. And, of course, when you bring it out, you're being a hater, or they take it personal. Like nobody can critique anybody on the real. He has something against me, or he doesn't like me. Right. Yeah.
It's difficult because the criteria has totally changed. And, you're right. And I think the journalism has a lot to play in that as well, in that, like, guarantee off the back of this interview, there'll be a bunch of clickbait headlines where it says, Nick Aldis shoots on AEW, like shoots on AEW style of wrestling, and they'll pick one quote where it says, this, it doesn't make sense. Like, it's just simply to inflame like the diehard sort of fans. Look, I won a lot of those fans over by my, by working with Cody and the Bucks and being involved in All In and that association, and with Marty and everything else. So it's like, it was really interesting to me to watch the dynamic shift from in how I was received by those fans. And I'm well aware of the fact that at one point I was not on their favorites list,
Let me ask you a question, Nick. Very important question here. So what would you call, or how would you kind of describe, without, general terms, their fan base? Because what I feel, it's almost like a mixture of a lot of fans that were turned off by the WWE product, like WWE made their own competition by pissing them off for so many years with all the bullshit they pulled, okay? And then there almost seems to be and I don't even know if this is a correct word, but almost like a nerd culture, cosplay, anime kind of, fan base kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like, how would you describe that, their fan base?
I think I would probably say that they are a concentrated version of the overall kind of culture of wrestling fans in 2020. Like, they're the sort of most concentrated version of it, which is, look, I 20, when I was first becoming a fan, the idea that wrestling fans would do interviews on, comicbook.com and stuff would seem strange, but it's changed a lot. Like, it has fallen into the category along with, like you said, anime and comic books and stuff like that. And there's crossover there. There's much more crossover between those fan bases than there is between wrestling fans and sports fans now, which is, look, I can't tell you what caused it. I can't tell you, other than the fact that wrestling has always been ahead of the curve in terms of the online activity, in terms of social media, and just like even before that with the forums and the message boards and all that kind of stuff. So I think that maybe that's part of it, and that like wrestling really embraced the internet and the online culture very quickly. So then it kind of germinated, with the others. And there's not, look, I'm not necessarily saying it's good or bad. Like,
no, and neither am I. Neither am I. I don't say it in a negative connotation.
Bro, I figured it out just now with this conversation. I figured it out, bro. Back in the 80s, I played Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, right. I went to Dungeons and Dragons conventions. Okay, what I'm saying, I went to Dungeons and Dragons conventions. I got comic books.
You're gonna get over if you're not careful.
I'm saying I went to comic books, so I started going to I went to comic book conventions, bro. The identical people. Like, you look at the judges, same thing. Now it's fantasy. Comic books and Dungeons and Dragons fantasy. Now as wrestling has gotten away from the suspension of disbelief and has embraced the phoniness, we've got the fans of fantasy now. Yeah. Fantasy fans that like that like the comic books, that like the Dungeons and Dragons, like professional wrestling, by not adhering to the principles that like make it real anymore, have embraced fans of phony stuff, and this is what you get at these shows, and this is the fan base.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think because obviously wrestling for me has always provided some form of escapism. Like that's a big part of the success of the product in general. In very basic terms, the viewer lives vicariously through, one of the characters in this fight. But see, to me, I fell in love with wrestling, and particularly the idea of being a wrestler around the age of like 14, 15, because it made me think of like sports movies, like Rocky and, things like that, where it was like, wow, this is a way to like play out a sports movie in real time. You know what I mean? Like this struggle, like the heel, the champion, the guy going for it all, but you can determine the outcome, right? Like if that was the escapism for me, and maybe it's different now.
I also think, Nick, that part of it was once they took out all the things that made the Attitude Era what it was, sex, violence, curse words, and all that, you lost like a real cool segment of the fans, and they were going somewhere. Now that's when the new fans came in, and like you said, I think I never thought about that, but I think you are right, because they always did have a good online, presence.
Yeah,
early on.
Like, because if you think about it, in the late 90s, if you were even in the early 2000s, if you spent a lot of time on the internet, it was still kind of said in a kind of derisive way, like, oh, he's always on the internet, like it was kind of a nerd thing. And wrestling was like, I mean, even going back to the old AOL days and stuff, I would always remember seeing on like the pay-per-views, like, oh, WCW is the number one AOL search, or WWF's like the number one search term on AOL this week. So they were ahead of the curve, like wrestling often is in a lot of things like that. Social media, it's like isn't like wrestling is like the third most engaged subject on Twitter or something like so I remember some sort of crazy stat like that. But we're opening up a whole other can of worms with this, what you just said too. But the just the weird dynamic that exists now despite the fact that everybody is well aware that what we do is a show and entertainment, but the restrictions on what we can do in a fictional environment have tightened and just continue to tighten so much. Like this, and again, you got to be so careful how you say stuff, because people don't listen to it if you say certain words, because then they just go up, like he's on the other team, and that's the end of it. And I just fucking hate that culture all the way around.
Right. Yeah. We hate that. We hate the cancel culture. We hate all of that, bro.
Yeah. Just the divisiveness in everything. But to me, it's just it's strange. It's like this, the woke culture thing is just like, okay, I don't understand it. What's
gone overboard?
Well, I'll tell you that straight up, one of the reasons why there was such a big period of inactivity with us was because Billy just got really spooked about, because he was, this is not his main source of income, obviously.
Right.
It's not a source of income at all. He's been investing money.
And was he getting heat over this?
Well, not directly, but he was looking at it and going, what am I doing? Am I just, he's got his music empire to worry about. And it's like, he doesn't want to get taken down, because of one thing.
Is he inviting
for a while?
Bro, he's from that rock and roll culture, bro. If we want it, like if the outrage culture
who knows
really
what
wants
shit he probably did.
Well, just the thing, bro. You can go back in the outrage culture back in the 80s and the hair metal days and stuff, and all these, you can go back as a pretty long way and open up that can of worms, and it's gonna be like, oh my god, bro. It's just people out there that gain power through canceling other people, and it's like it's just people. There's just and the funniest thing about it is I see the wrestlers on Twitter complaining about being bullied and stuff, and I'm like, look, it's like, how could you not know by now that like this environment, it's like fish in the, it's like a sea, and there's sharks in the water, and you're going swimming, and they're going to bite you. Like, if you're pretending that doesn't exist, it's like you shouldn't be on social media anymore. So it's like, I just think it's funny how we've let people write the rules. And for some reason, the business, nobody fights it. Everybody just, okay, these are the rules. We got to fire this guy. This guy's got to go. And I'm sitting there saying, like, what is that? Like, who is making the punishments here? Everybody's the judge and jury. It's like, well, are we going to forgive anybody for anything? Can you apologize and move forward? Or does that exist?
Twitter, wrestling Twitter especially is just such a dumpster fire at the best of times, but it's like it doesn't I've just always believed that it's not an accurate indicator of the overall sentiment of the audience. Even now, I remember having this conversation with Dixie back in like 2013 or 14, where she was like, we've got a real problem. I'm like, what's that? She's like, well, we did a poll, and the fans don't the fans don't like you as world champion. I'm like, I'm a heel.
Right.
Like, what is it like? So it's this constant like riding the fence of like nothing gets my goat more than when like someone does a segment, and I'm not trying to single out WWE in this, but I see them do it a lot, where it's like they'll do some segment with like a heel, doing something really awful, like something that in real life would result in pressing charges, which is again going too far the other way, because it's about suspension of disbelief. And then sometimes in the same show, like you'll see a segment later on where they're like reading to kids, or like doing it like I would see that, and I would just think like, was that really like, don't rub it in our face, like it's like, but that the wrestling business now lives in this constant fear of everything's just a show. Like, we don't mean anything. No one really means it. Please believe us. Like, we're all really great guys. And look, we're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. There've been times where I've done stuff where I've been like, my clout chasing here, like maybe, but it's just like the engagement, and I don't know. It's just,
But they have no clue how to protect. It's like protecting the business. These wrestlers, it's like, I don't want to see a guy that I'm investing in fighting another guy on Twitter, on social media, talking about his mental health problems.
Right.
And it's just like, I'm just not. That's not. You're not getting a fan from me out of that.
It's another one that we saw the other day, and we were like, bro, protect your fucking character.
There's a difference
Strowman dressed up as an elf and in a thong. Come on.
Right. There's a difference between people liking you and being over.
Right.
I personally, I have my own sort of, social beliefs and political beliefs and God knows whatever. And I'm pretty comfortable in the idea that there's always going to be someone who disagrees with me on something. So unless I'm going to start talking about that shit for my career, I'm probably just going to keep it to myself. It's like this idea that everyone now is sort of required to, wrestlers basically now, you have to be friends with the fans. That's pretty much, and this is especially true when you look at the sort of the quote unquote kind of top independents, like the hot indies, especially like in the UK, like the progresses and things like that. It's like you pretty much have to be friends with the fans, right? Because it's like they have to know what you think about all these different political and social issues. You have to soapbox about all this stuff, and you have to communicate with them like, fourth wall style. You've got to make sure that you like make all these inside references, so they go, oh yeah, he was talking about this, like, oh, he was taking a shot at this or whatever. It's like it's like it's a political sort of, it's a weird thing now, and I just don't play that game. And I think that part of this, the way that the style of our storytelling and booking or whatever we're going to call it with the NWA formed was out of that idea where I went, well, the fans know the ins and outs of your asshole now anyway. So you may as well you may as well promote stories and angles that are very, very close to what's, to your real lives anyway, because because everyone already knows, right? It's like the angle with Marty and I before that all got kiboshed with COVID. Marty did sign a big money deal with Sinclair for Ring of Honor, and I did sit there and go, oh, that's, must be nice. Like I'm busting my ass I built an entire brand off my back, I'm making okay money. Do you know what I mean? But not that kind of money. So I'm sitting there like I am kind of jealous about that. And everyone can relate to that, because they could be like,
that's professional jealousy, right?
Right. And then there's Marty, like, I've never been world champion. You've got to, you walk in because you're tall and you've got a good physique and you can talk, blah, blah, you get to be world champion everywhere. And even though I'm over as shit and like I sell all this merchandise, I've never been world champion anywhere. That's all true. So
Disco's also floated the idea that you were the one that put out that thing with Marty and whoever he was in England, so you could take his spot in Ring of Honor and get that money. So good move. Good move, Nick.
That's like a storyline from Billions.